it's me. Today I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about the hullabaloo that's been happening on Twitter the last few days. Basically, over the last few days, several really well-known authors have been having a conversation on Twitter about their frustrations with people misusing ARCs or selling ARCs or not reviewing ARCs correctly or enough, etc, etc. Hi, I know, hello. Okay, this conversation was fairly hurtful to book reviewers, and a lot of people in the book reviewing community kind of started chiming in on Twitter expressing their frustration with like the way that they feel a lack of respect and a lack of value coming from the publishing industry. And I want to clarify right now that I don't think the authors that were making these comments are like horrible people or that they even meant that much harm by them. I think that they really were just expressing the frustrations that they feel about the things that are going wrong on their end of the community. So I don't want this video to come off as like shade towards any particular authors who have ever expressed this frustration, but in general this has been an issue between authors and book reviewers for so long, like at least for the several years that I've been in the community. It seems like we've had this discussion already so many times, and every time something goes wrong in the publishing industry, it's the book reviewers that kind of get caught in the crossfire of that anger and that frustration. So I kind of just thought that I would make this video to share my thoughts on why I think it is an issue that pops up so often, and also kind of some ways that I think we might be able to take steps to alleviate it. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
Careful, it's very hot.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you too.
And I'm definitely not trying to say that, oh, I know anything about the inner workings of the publishing industry or like I'm a professional marketer or something like that. But I have been in this community working as a reviewer for several years now. So I definitely get the frustration from our end of things. And also, like, I am a new business owner who does have to deal with things like marketing campaigns and stuff. So I also get the frustration from the author's end of it too, and why they're upset and why it hurts them so much. But I really feel like this boils down to is kind of a misplacement of value from both sides. Like, I think that authors and reviewers are undervaluing the work that we do, and I think that authors and reviewers are kind of overvaluing what ARCs are and what ARCs are worth. I'm sorry if that's like blasphemy, but I'm gonna come out and say it. ARCs, we have this really weird like worship culture around ARCs, and I think that that's a big part of the problem from both sides, like I said. So let's kind of start from the beginning here. I think this all started, and I could be wrong, I'm not like a Twitter guru, but I think this started with Susan Dennard's tweet, which said, you know, basically, if you're not gonna read an ARC, don't pick it up. If you're picking up an ARC just so that you can trade it away, don't pick it up. Don't sell ARCs, stuff like that. And then some other authors jumped into the conversation. I don't know who said this because I only have it in a screenshot and I couldn't find the actual tweet on Twitter anywhere, but someone else jumped in saying, you know, that they were frustrated that they sent out 20 ARCs and only 6 of them got reviewed, to which Susan Dennard replied like, yeah, that's frustrating. And then there were some other conversations happening. For example, E.K. Johnston posted that, you know, she refuses to sign an ARC if someone doesn't want it personalized with their name, and if someone asks for an ARC signed without personalization, she assumes that that person is trying to steal the ARC so they can sell it on eBay, and instead of signing it, she writes like a nasty letter in it saying like, oh, I hope you didn't steal this ARC or whatever. And then there was like a stream of several other like really big authors kind of replying to that in agreement. Susan Dennard agreed, Danielle Clayton popped in, even Saba Tahir said that she thought there was a brilliant idea to do that, which, you know, let's just say yikes to that. And to be fair, I don't think that Susan Dennard's original tweet was meant to like spark this much controversy, and I don't think that she was even saying anything that bad, with the exception of the don't trade ARCs comment, which is a little questionable. You know, her tweet was really just telling people not to misuse ARCs, and I think that that's perfectly reasonable. I think people should be more thoughtful and more ethical when they pick up ARCs, and selling ARCs, you know, is obviously very wrong, and it's something that people shouldn't be doing. So I get Susan Dennard's original tweet, but like I said, telling us not to trade ARCs that's a little bit weird to me, because we are allowed to trade ARCs, and in fact trading ARCs with each other is kind of one of the ways that smaller reviewers or marginalized reviewers or international reviewers actually get ARCs at all, and it's putting those ARCs in the hands of more reviewers, which is a good thing. I think the comment that actually hurt people the most was E.K. Johnston's comment about not personalizing ARCs and kind of writing snotty notes in the ARCs, because I think it just kind of puts the idea out there that like authors are on their guard against us, and they're kind of viewing us as like potential thieves, which is just wild to us because we are their audience and we see ourselves as people who are on their team, and we're doing this to help them and support them. So the thought that they see us with like suspicion and like potential enemy status is like really, it's kind of heartbreaking. You know, we do what we do because we love you and we love your books and we want you and your books to be successful. We have the same goals. We're working towards the same thing. It's just kind of casting reviewers as like, oh, we're the villains and like we're dragging down your success because we're not good enough and what we do isn't good enough. And that sucks because we're doing this all like out of love for authors and out of love for their books. You know, so many people have pointed out the fact that like, you know, a blogger pays $100 a year for their domain name. They spend countless hours every year managing their websites, creating content, reading books, writing reviews, promoting those reviews, helping authors out, and we don't get paid for this. And so many bloggers have said that all they want in return for that is a little bit of respect and to not be treated as the punching bag for the authors to take their frustration out on when something does go wrong with ARCs. And like I said, I truly feel like that disconnect comes from an overvaluing of ARCs and an undervaluing of reviewers' work from both sides. Like I said, both people are doing both things. So let's start with the overvaluing of ARCs, because when it comes down to it, ARCs are basically marketing tools. Running a campaign of ARCs is just running a marketing campaign. Authors are sending ARCs out into the world in the hopes that those ARCs will generate talk and generate publicity and result in more sales. And I get this from firsthand experience because like I said, I run a small business too. I know what it feels like to run a marketing campaign and to invest in a campaign and have it not pan out the way that you want it to, and it sucks. Like it truly does. So I'm a photographer and I'm just kind of starting out in a new area and it's kind of hard to build a client base. So a couple months ago I ran a promotion where I gave away 3 free photo shoots, and a photo shoot for me is worth $100. So I gave away $300 worth of photo shoots in the hopes that those people would post their pictures online and tag me in them and spread the word and maybe refer their friends and stuff like that. And it didn't happen. To be honest, like I did not get one single new client out of that campaign. And that sucks. Like I get it. It feels bad. But the thing is that I'm not going to berate my clients about it. Am I going to go, you know, post on Facebook about how horrible my clients were, that they didn't get me more revenue? Or am I going to have a loud conversation in front of my clients where they can hear me about how they were worthless and they didn't do anything for me? No, because that's just a shitty thing to do. Like from the perspective of trying to run a business that way and from the perspective of just like not being a shit person. Sometimes ad campaigns just don't work out as well as you want them to. And yes, there are shitty people out there that misuse ARCs or sell ARCs, and that sucks, but it's a thing that happens. That's a risk that you're taking when you're putting your work out there in the world. Sometimes when I send clients their proofs, they take screenshots of the proofs and post them even though they're not supposed to. Does that mean that I'm not gonna send my clients proofs anymore because a couple of them disobeyed my rules? No. A marketing campaign should never be predicted at a 100% success rate. Like honestly, that author that said they sent out 20 ARCs and only got 6 reviews, again, if I'm being really honest here, 6 reviews out of 20 ARCs, that doesn't even sound that bad. That's like a pretty large percentage of the people you sent ARCs to reviewing them. Like, are we really gonna be mad when our stuff doesn't have a 100% success rate? Because to be honest, that's not realistic. When you budget for a marketing campaign, you have to understand that some of that is gonna be collateral. And you also have to consider that maybe the other 14 people, some of them didn't like your book and maybe they didn't want to post a negative review, because that's another thing authors get mad at us for doing. Or perhaps, and this is another issue, maybe those ARCs were not distributed to the people who were actually going to be interested in them. And I know that authors aren't in charge of where their ARCs go, but that's a discussion that needs to be between authors and their publishers. That has nothing to do with reviewers. Like, reviewers did not decide for your publisher to hand out ARCs like pancakes at a convention to random strangers. Reviewers did not decide that the top 1% of booktubers should be showered with hundreds of ARCs, more than they know what to do with every single month. They're getting like 500 ARCs. You know, as an author and a publisher, that they're not going to review all of those, while the smaller book reviewers that were really excited about that book and planned to write a really in-depth, amazing review on it get ignored. So maybe distribution is a conversation that needs to happen between authors and publishers, and maybe authors need to manage their expectations a little bit about what they truly expect every single arc going out in the world is going to do for them. Like I said, a large percentage of marketing happens to end up as collateral, and that sucks, but it's not on us. It's not on the reviewers. However, one thing that is on reviewers is the way that we also overvalue arcs, and we do. We have such a weird culture around arcs where we like worship them, and it's super not useful to anyone. What ends up happening is that we as reviewers end up like begging and groveling for arcs and putting this importance on like, well, if you're really a successful reviewer, that means you're gonna get tons of arcs every month. And what that makes happen is people go out seeking as many arcs as they can get, whatever arcs they can get, even if they're not truly interested in that book or they don't truly have time to read and review and do their due diligence on all of these arcs, just because we like the feeling of being honored with the opportunity. And that's normal. It's a normal feeling because it is cool to get arcs. It is cool to get review copies. And I want to make it clear that I am super grateful for every arc and every review copy that I have received, and every time an author trusted me like to put their work in my hands for a review. That's great, and it is a wonderful feeling. And it's awesome to be excited about stuff like that, but when we start to overvalue what that stuff is worth, we start to undervalue our own importance, which is the next problem that I want to talk about. We undervalue what we do, and in turn that allows authors and publishers to undervalue what we do. And when people were pointing this out on Twitter, another author chimed in saying, you know, like, I don't want to be salty, but yes, reviewers do all of this work for free and stuff, but that's because it's your hobby, whereas for authors, this is our job and we're depending on this for income, so it's more important for us. And I get that sentiment, but also at the same time, that's also kind of exactly what we're saying. This is not our job. This is our hobby. We're not getting paid for this. We're not your employee. We're not under contract to you. We literally, like, we do not work for your marketing department. So when something goes wrong within your marketing department, why are we the ones that get the blowback from that? Whereas for authors, like this person said, this is your job. You're getting paid for this. Like managing your advertisements, finding more successful ways to distribute arcs, all of this stuff is something that is your job to do, not mine. This is just our hobby and we're not getting paid for it. And a lot of us, most of us, like, we're not here for money. We don't care about that. But if we were going to look at ourselves from a monetary standpoint, we are worth a lot. And even though we're not going to ask for that money, probably, we at least deserve to be taken seriously and respected. I was actually offered a sponsorship last week, and the company asked me how much I would charge for like a 30-second shout out in a video. And so I was like, I don't know. I've never literally thought about that before in my life. And so I had to go do some research on it because I didn't know. And while I was researching like the rates that influencers usually charge for their services, my mind was blown. And I think a lot of us assume that because we're smaller channels or smaller blogs that we're not worth anything and people aren't going to pay us anyway. But actually what I learned is that if you have under the 10,000 subscribers, you're what they call a micro influencer, and you're actually worth more. And influencers actually get paid more for being a micro influencer because we have a more personal and intimate and engaged relationship with our audience. So the fact that you're not a huge blogger or a huge YouTuber actually doesn't make you worth less. And I feel like a lot of brands that reach out to us for representation try to take advantage of the fact that we don't know that, and that we are gonna say like, oh, we're just honored you asked us, just send us a free book, we're fine. And that's fine. Again, I'm not advocating that like, oh, we should all start charging or something. If you're happy to get free books, then that's fine, you do you. But I also saw on Twitter a lot of people that work within the publishing industry explaining that like, oh, the reason big publishing companies don't pay us or value us or like spend more time communicating with us is because like they don't have the resources or the budget to do so. And I just don't know about that because every other industry in this world pays their influencers, and they pay their influencers a lot. And I also question the like, we don't have budgets aspect of it, because my interactions being a reviewer with small indie publishers or indie authors blow my interactions with major publishers out of the water 9 times out of 10. I can think off the top of my head right now 5 off the top of my head times that an indie author or an indie publisher who is doing all of this out of their own pocket, they don't have an agent, they don't have a budget, they don't have these resources that major publishers have. And yet so often when they send me a book, it's not just the book, it comes in a box with like other trinkets and gifts or like personalized notes and stuff that makes me as a reviewer feel valued and appreciated. Whereas I honestly can't even think of a single time I received a book from a major publisher that came with more than like a 3-word email, like, oh, we send book, bye. Yet it's the major publishers and the New York Times best-selling authors that are complaining about their reviewers not doing enough for them. And yet reviewers are the ones that are supposedly entitled? Like, riddle me that. I don't get it. And you know what, maybe that's an issue too, that these larger publishers aren't really communicating with their reviewers about what their expectations are. They're just kind of like sending books or handing books out at conventions, and that's that. There's no communication happening. And maybe that's where a solution comes into play. Maybe if we all learn to manage and communicate our expectations a little bit more, this relationship could be like more smooth. So like as reviewers, yeah, I think that we should listen to what Susan Dennard and the other authors are saying about how they're frustrated with ARC misuse, and we can start thinking more about what ARCs we choose to pick up instead of just like collecting ARCs because they're cool and then never doing anything with them. And authors need to listen to what reviewers are saying too. And I know that these authors do this from time to time because they're just lashing out when they're upset and it's not actually personal. But this conversation has been going on for years with, you know, reviewers being barred from book conventions because we're not worth enough, or complained about every time something goes wrong. Listen to the review community when we tell you that it hurts us that you accuse all of us of being potential thieves. And listen to us when we say that we know who is selling your ARC, we can tell you which blogger it is, and then stop giving that blogger ARCs. Like, listen to us when we tell you it's frustrating that, you know, bloggers have told you who's putting that ARC on eBay, and then next month that blogger is still getting ARCs from you. And then next month it's an issue when you're mad that your ARCs showed up on eBay again. And like I said, we need to work on not picking up as much ARCs that we're not planning on reviewing. But authors, a little bit of grace goes a long way when, you know, a blogger picks up a book and maybe the review doesn't come out. Sometimes shit happens. You know, I went to Y'all West a couple years ago and I picked up some ARCs that I was truly, genuinely so excited about and so excited to read and review. And then the week I got home from Y'all West is when my husband of 7 years asked me for a divorce. Yeah, I didn't get those reviews up. The thought that an author might have berated me for that without even knowing why or what was going on in my life, like, it's not a nice thing to do with people who are truly on your team. And I think that all of us really need to start speaking up and making our expectations and our policies clear and agreeing on these things before we send or receive ARC. Reviewers, if you are requesting or being offered an ARC, be clear about what you're willing to do in exchange. And authors and publishers, if you are asking for a review, you also need to be clear about what you're expecting from us. Do you understand and are you willing to accept the fact that some of those ARCs are not going to get reviewed? These are things that we all need to be clear about before we engage in ARC stuff. And I think that if everyone is clear about what they expect and they're understanding when things might not work out and are able to direct our frustration in the proper direction when something like that happens, then everyone is going to feel more respected and this relationship is going to be more enjoyable for everyone involved. Like I said, I personally have been in this community for several years and I've seen the frustration from our end of feeling dismissed and undervalued. And I also see the frustration from the authors and when they expect so much out of their ARC campaigns and they don't get as much as they expected. All of us really need to start managing our perceptions of what an ARC is actually worth and what an ARC means. And all of us need to take a moment and look at what the review community is doing as influencers compared to other communities of influencers and how important we actually are. And again, I just want to reiterate, I don't think that any of the authors involved in this were trying to say that we aren't important or that they don't value us. I don't think that those authors are bad people, and I don't think that they were trying to trash talk reviewers. I really truly don't. Susan Dennard, to her credit, every time I saw someone point out, you know, a flaw in what she was saying or how what she said was hurtful in some way, she responded to them and said, you know, that's a good point and I see where you're coming from, you're right. And she also apologized on Twitter. So again, I'm not trying to say that these authors are horrible or that authors don't love us, because in general we do have a really good relationship with authors. It's just that every now and then when something goes wrong, reviewers get caught in the crossfire. I don't usually do discussion videos about like drama like this or whatever, but I don't feel like it's drama. I feel like it's an issue in our community that needs to be talked through. So I hope that this video was enjoyable for people to maybe get some more thoughts on the matter, or maybe, you know, rethink the way that they look at ARCs or the way that they look at the review community. So Yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say today. I would love to talk to you in the comments about what your thoughts on all of this are. Do you think that our community has an ARC problem? And if so, what do you think that problem stems from? And what can we do to make that problem better? I would love to hear from you guys. If you like this video, you can go ahead and give it a little thumbs up because that really helps me. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, you can do that too if you wanted to. I make new videos every Monday and Thursday talking about books. And again, I would love to talk to you. So I hope that I get to talk to you soon. Bye!